Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So good afternoon, welcome to again. It's going to be 2 weeks we'll spend with each other, and I think this will be really interesting because, as you can see from the color of my hair, I am passing on problems to you. This is going to be your problem to solve, right? We have done all that we can to emit as much carbon dioxide as we could in the atmosphere, and we thought, okay, there will be a day of when we need to do something about it, and that's where we come to you to say you are the brightest minds. You have your whole future in front of you. Whether you plan to work in CCS or not, you will be doing it. You will be doing it either in your personal lives, either actively working for CCS, or you will be dealing with the problems of of increased emissions and global warming. Some of you might have professions that will require you to make choices that allow you to work in either green tech or in mitigation of emissions that are being put out today. You might need to make difficult choices about whether to go into a high-paying oil job, oil and gas, fossil fuels, or give up that job and work on something that is maybe renewable technologies, maybe with a pay cut. At the very least, when you do investments with your money, with your hard-earned money, you might be required to make a choice. Do I take a higher percentage of return from oil and gas investment for my portfolio, or should I go with a smaller rate of return that is more sustainable? We make these choices every day. The world that we live in today doesn't allow us the freedom of choice. And that's where we are today. So I'm really excited to be talking about this. We've been doing this for a little while. And I got into CCS. I'd been wanting to do it for a very long time, but I felt that I didn't have enough knowledge about it. It just seemed like a closed door. Until a colleague came to me and said, Manika, we have a problem. We are writing a proposal, and one of the researchers said she would not participate for whatever reason. We need a third person. And I said, well, it's something I wanted to do. So tell me what I can do. And they said, well, we just want you to look at this and this problem. It was something about geophysical monitoring. And they were looking at seal rocks for carbon storage. And now those were shales. And I had been working a lot on shales and nanoporous systems. And I said, this is something I know. And it was just by chance. And so what I realized, and that was late in my career, what I realized was sometimes we give ourselves roadblocks. We know things that we may not think that we know. And that was for me a very big gift of that researcher to come to me and say, we need a third person. Can you be that third person? And we really don't need you to think much. It allowed me the freedom of thinking. And so what we'll talk about in these 3 weeks or 2 weeks is a lot about why do we need to do it? Where are we today? And what are we doing today? What can we do today to mitigate the problems? So we'll go through it in a brief manner, but I'm really excited to be here and to be talking about this because it makes it's exciting to be in this field. There are a lot of technical challenges. There are a lot of problems that we really don't know how to solve. So it makes for a technically vibrant field. It also is a fast changing field. So the data, I developed a CCUS certificate program at Mines. This was the first program ever in the world. It is an online program. We started compiling data to put that together, starting from climate change into geologic sequestration, economy of sequestration, who's going to pay for it, and what are the capture methods. And this was not just me alone. I was coordinating it. We had about 20 faculty working together to develop the course. That was launched in 2011. 2021. That would have been a long time ago. 2021. In doing this course today, I started revising the numbers. And it is scary. I might have time to show you what we had in 2021 and what we have today. Despite all of the IPCC meetings, the Paris Agreement was in 2015. We all agreed we'll do all of these good, lofty, ideal work. And then you come back and look at the data, hard data, that shows you really nothing is changing. And so what we are trying to address today is, where do we stand today? What are the data that you can take away? And what are the efforts that we can do today to make sure that we are stemming the flow? We are not letting the temperature data get away from us. Okay. So a little bit about, in the beginning, just a little bit of primary work to get to know who I'm talking to. So how many of you are from IIT Madras? Okay, maybe the other question. Who is not from IIT Madras? Okay. And so if I can hear, how many are students and how many are professionals? Students? Okay. Professionals. Good. Fine. And we'll get to know each other. I'll get to know what your disciplines are. Geoscientists amongst you? Okay. The rest of you are chemists, chemical engineers and chemists? Okay. Mechanical computers. No one. You should get computer scientists into this thing here, because a lot of energy gets taken up by data servers. Data servers are today some of the largest emitters of the energy they need, the cooling they need. So we need computer scientists in this room. Who have I missed? Which discipline have I missed? Material scientists. We will need you to design materials. Metallurgy, okay. Civil engineering? Couple, okay, good. You guys use up a lot of cement, and that is a big problem. So, so as you can see, we'll have fun. I think the main thing which I'm trying to get to is, this is not about me talking here. I hope it will be a conversation. I hope it will be something where I can learn from you, because I'm a geophysicist, I'm an earth scientist. I deal with rocks. I don't deal with the fine synthesis and the materials that Professor Sangwai works with, right there in the back. So we'll, and a lot of you work in these systems, but it's exciting to be talking to each other, because we have a challenge. When I drill a well, I open it up and I'm looking for millions or thousands of tons of carbon dioxide. Please do not come to me with handfuls, right? So it's a system, it's a scale system. If we are designing systems, then we need to be talking to each other. How much can you capture? Do you capture enough that it makes it viable for me to drill a well and wait for you to capture? I cannot wait for 10 years for you to capture, because by then my well will have fallen in and it would have sealed by itself. So we need to be able to talk to each other, and we hope we have a good schedule for you. So these are the topics we are going to cover. The first part first and the second. The first one really is, why do we need to do it? What is the evidence for climate change? I don't know how you have experienced it, but for me, living in the US, a lot of students and also people come and say, I feel that climate is changing. I feel something. And we look at that and say, no, wait a minute, we have data. So what we will do is we will construct an anomaly data. How do you look at temperatures and how do we evaluate temperatures all over the world? What do we mean when we say we do not want warming to be above 1.5 degrees centigrade? What does that mean? What are we comparing it with? Right? So that's the climate change data and analysis. We'll then look at energy systems. If we say that the change today is due to human caused activities, what data do we have? What are the emissions today? From where are they coming? And what are we going to do to control them? What is our main energy source? It might be different from country to country, from state to state. So we'll look at that. The third part we'll touch upon is sustainability. It should not be that the climate change effects are caused in one place and borne by others, the effects, right? So when we're looking at extreme events in climate, when we're looking to say who should cut what emissions, what we will be discussing, and I hope as a group we'll discuss this, is how do we do this? I studied in Germany and they have a very nice saying, you want to eat the sausage, but you don't want to see how it's made. It's a messy process. If you followed anything about the COP29 discussions that are happening today in Baku, there were fierce arguments. There were fierce arguments on one side with industrialized nations saying everyone needs to pull their weight and we need to all cut emissions. There were some nations, for example, the nation of Tuvalu. We'll see a video from the Prime Minister at that time in Tuvalu saying, my island will be gone. We have no industry on the island, but the rising temperatures lead to a sea level rise, and that sea level rise is losing my island. In 10 years' time, we will no longer be there, right? So when we talk about people who are threatened, if you look at places in, for example, Sudan, you look at Kenya, we today talk about climate refugees. The water scarcity is so high that they cannot plant crops, they would not grow. And so to escape that future of food insecurity, most people migrate to other places. And so you have a refugee crisis that's mainly due to the fact that there is less water to go around. So who is to be responsible for this? Who should cut emissions? Right? So that was the part of the discussions. Did anyone follow the agreements that were reached from COP29? I think it was something like $29 or $39 billion that were promised by industrialized nations to pay to poorer countries to meet their climate goals. And that is not enough. The amount of change that we need to do today is way more. And we'll look at some of those data. What does it mean for mitigating these problems? We'll look at capture and sequestration. What do we mean when we say capture? What types of capture systems exist? What do we mean by sequestration? And then we'll talk about geologic sequestration. That's where I come in. So that's sort of a little bit of the world that I live in. We are right now negotiating. We just finished negotiations of a very large project that I will be leading soon to drill 2 wells in southern Colorado. And we will inject carbon dioxide, we will prepare it, do all the science so that we know that we can sequester about 50 million tons of carbon dioxide over 30 years. That's a little over about 1.5 million tons per year. So we'll talk a little bit about that project. What do we hope to do? And what do we need to do? And then we'll look at utilization technologies. We will talk about carbon dioxide enhanced oil recovery. And we'll talk about other utilization methods. And finally, we will look to see how do we supply carbon dioxide to where we need it to be. We capture in one place, we generate in another place, we store in some other place. How do we get it from one place to the other, right? And then we'll talk a little bit about Indian policy, what governs this movement from one place to the other. We will not follow this scheme of color. It just helped me to organize my thoughts so that I'm not all over the place. I think you have this program, so I'm not going to spend any time on it. Needless to say, we'll be spending 3 hours together, okay? The first thing is on climate change. We'll have 2 lectures and we'll touch on things like GAST. What is the definition? How do you construct your own GAST? We'll look at the effects of high temperature. What was the highest temperature in India this year? Anyone know? 49 or 50, right? 49 or 50 degrees centigrade. Now, it's easy for many people to sit inside in air-conditioned rooms. It's not easy for day laborers. They have to go out and work. If you don't go out and work, you don't have food. Simple as that. So if you look at the equity of this system, there is a very large problem of allowing high temperatures like this and not doing anything, because half of your population will be out there working. Will have a lower life expectancy. So you're almost changing what people experience, one segment of people versus the next one, right? We'll look at temperature measurement data. Where do we get them from? Where are freely accessible data? How do you collect these data? How do you make your own temperature charts so you know where things are going? And we'll do a GHG reconstruction. And then we'll look a little bit at the nuances of the GAST curve. How many of you have worked on climate data before? Okay, if I use jargon, please tell me to stop and ask me. GAST? Okay. Global average surface temperature. Okay. So we'll look at creating our own average surface temperature, and we will calculate anomaly to that surface temperature. We'll do that as a class exercise. And then we'll look at the warming potential and greenhouse gases. So that's pretty much what we will do. As we do that, here's a challenge. At the end of the class, I'd like us to come back to this and address this. So when you go home, talk to your neighbors, form groups. This thing is best done in a group of 3 or 4, more if you like. But what I'm posing to you, the challenge is, you are a newly affected, let's say you are interested in politics and you think, okay, I have my mechanical engineering, chemical engineering degree. Now I want to be the state senator or state governor. So you now need to reduce your emissions, and you need to develop a 10-year and a 50-year plan, whatever. You can give yourself the time what you need. Your mandate is to reduce your emissions. What did we say? by, oh, we just gave you freedom, right? We say you need to reduce your emissions, let's say 10%, 5%, that's up to you. But you do need to come back with a plan to say you will reduce your emissions. So you will create decarbonization goals. What are your goals? You will look at your energy budget. You can take either India as a whole, or you can take a state, Tamil Nadu, you can take Maharashtra, wherever you would like to consider this. Look at the state of the emissions. What is the status today? How much are you emitting? How much will you reduce, right? This is what we are doing with decarbonization. How will you achieve your decarbonization goals? If you say that my state emits, I don't know, 50 million tons of carbon dioxide in a month, your goal would be to reduce that by 10%. How will you do that? What will you cut? So you will come back with a plan of how to cut that and what policies, incentives. So either a stick or a carrot, what will you offer to your constituents to help you meet that goal? Okay? And we will discuss where do you get the data from as we go along and how do you make these sort of decisions. But the decision really is going to be yours to make as a group. How will you meet the goals? How should India meet its goals of emissions reduction? The United Nations panel on climate change has something called NDCs, nationally declared contributions, or nationally determined contributions. Those are contributions that each country pledges to make to reduce carbon dioxide for that country. And India has certain projections it's made. We'll look at those declarations a few lectures down the road. And so if India says we will reduce our emissions by 2030, we'll go down by 10%. By 2050, we will be down by 50%. And by 2090 or 2100, we will be net zero. How should that happen? That will be incumbent on all of you, because the goals will be there. Implementation is where we are lacking. How do we do this, right? So this is the challenge that we have posed, and Professor Sangwai and I decided, okay, I think we should not let you get away just like that. You sit and you listen and you go home and say, yes, very nice, and then that's it. So this is your challenge. We'll come back to this. We'll remind you about these conversations. Okay. Okay. Simple stuff. What's the difference between weather and climate? Is it okay to ask questions? Yes? Okay. Let's say this side of the room, I want you to tell me what is, maybe I should not. Okay, tell me what is this side of the room, tell me what is weather, and that side of the room, tell me what is climate. What's the difference? We're looking at the difference. Sorry? Will be weather, right? Short term. And why do we need weather information? I want to know if it's raining. Should I take an umbrella or not? Right? What's climate? Long term, right? Long term, long duration. What are the trends? Why do we need that information? To plan, right? To plan, to know what's going on. Should we need to do something? Should we panic? Should we all kill ourselves? It's the world is coming to an end. Or is it really worth living, and what are we going to do, right? So there is a big difference between the two. Obviously, one leads to the other. Long-term patterns of weather give you what the changes in climate, right? So that's pretty much what we are looking at. This, by the way, is Colorado somewhere. This is a picture from a colleague of mine. He and I developed the climate change course together in 2021. He's an aerosol scientist and he worked a lot. That's Chuck Wilson. And he works on aerosol reduction measurements, very high precision measurements about the ozone hole and so on. So this is a picture that he took. That's the Colorado mountain range. This is out in the plains. If you think of Golden, we would be somewhere in the mountains hidden up there at the foothills of the mountains, really not very high. But if we consider climate, then we're really looking at everything together. We're looking at the lithosphere, we're looking at the cryosphere, the hydrosphere, all of these systems, the atmosphere, biosphere, all of these come together to give us the climate system. So when we're looking about change, we're looking for changes in every one of these systems, right? All of them together are driving the climate system, are affected by the climate system. So this is all one thing that holds together. Which brings us to temperature. These are temperatures. This is Denver's climate. This is January to December. And it's a cold region. So we reach, this is in degrees Fahrenheit, which means at 32, this is below zero. This is maximum, minimum temperatures. So we have a large fluctuation in temperature that goes from below freezing to around 30 degrees centigrade. That's usually we get temperatures, 30 degrees is normal, 35 might be in some days. Usually it is -5 or 10 centigrade. On some 1 or 2 days, it might be -20 centigrade, right? So that's sort of the temperature fluctuation. So this is a very common curve. This happens every year. We have this sort of a fluctuation. So when we are looking to compare, we look at data from earlier to today, right? So this is the lighter shade of red is from 1981 to 2010. The darker shade of red is just 10 years separated. So this one starts in 91 and goes to 2020. So as you can see, consistently at every month, the darker color is slightly higher than the lighter color. So we're looking at this change. So we now want to have a way to be able to assess these changes. We measure temperature every month, every day. And so we take that and we say that we will measure that and we will calculate the mean, right? So out here, but then we have a problem because we have two cities in Colorado. One is at slightly higher elevation, the other one is slightly lower. And so we have a fluctuation starting from around 1950 all the way up to 2020. And we have data that really we can't assess very well. There's a lot of fluctuation. This is not the clean data that you might look at, which says there is a smoking gun, look at the temperature, it's here, and then it's going up. You don't see that. What we do see is, on an average, this temperature in Alamosa is lower than what is in Colorado Springs. And that difference is about 4 degrees centigrade. That's a very large difference. So when we're looking at global estimates, we want some way of comparing what's happening in Alamosa with what's happening in Colorado Springs, with what's happening in Texas, with what's happening in Chennai, right? And then we want to look at it as a global scale, everything together. How do we do that? So what we will look at is try to calculate what are known as anomalies. Out here, these dots are now anomalies that we calculate. So we will look at how to do that and what does it mean to be able to calculate the anomalies. And you've done that, you do that every day. You look at something, let's say you look at, I don't know, prices. And you say, okay, prices of, honey. Prices of honey have gone up, right? And you might say, oh, well, it used to be, I'm giving you my age, it used to be 20 rupees and now it's 200, right? So how do you compare? How do you know it's gone up? You have a baseline, right? We always do that. When we compare something, we want to create a baseline against which to compare. We do that for temperature as well. So what we do is we take all of the temperature, this entire fluctuation temperature year for year. We take the average for every day, for every month, for the year. And we take an average yearly temperature. And we plot that as a function of time, as a function of years. Every year we track and we say, okay, here's how the temperature is changing. If we want to compare the change, if we want to calculate the change, we have to declare a base. We have to say, as compared to this period, the temperature has changed. So we declare part of this curve as being the norm. And that's where some of the problems come in when we compare and when we fight about climate. Where do you put the norm? Oftentimes we will put it to pre-industrial times because we say that the industrialization has led to emissions of greenhouse gases, and those are the ones that are responsible for warming the atmosphere because they have a warming potential, because they don't act as normal gases, they act to trap heat, they heat up. So we try and compare data against a certain norm. Sorry. Okay. I wanted to show you a video, but maybe it is better for you to take these links and watch them on your own. What do you prefer? I think watching them on your own is fine. Yeah? Okay, good. What I'd like you to do is watch the first one, and that is heat in the human body. It's very relevant to India today because we've had temperatures above 50, and at that temperature, it is not safe to be outside. It is not safe to be working outside. If you do work outside, then you have to be doing a certain number of precautions so that you can survive 50 degrees, sustain 50 degrees. You will survive it. That's not a problem. You will survive it for one day. You will survive it for a week. When we're looking at your lifespan, we're saying the average life span in India is 60, 70, 80 years. You don't want to be the segment, the group that has to work outside at 50 degrees centigrade, where you are trying your very best to maintain, to be working that much. You don't have enough water to drink. You're damaging your kidneys. You're damaging your immune system because the body is not meant to take that high temperature, which means your lifespan reduces. Okay? So that's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about day-to-day illness. We can manage that. We're talking about every day, day in and day out, no respite. And then what we're talking about is that heat combined with high humidity so that your body cannot sweat, the wet bulb temperature. That gets to dangerous situations because now your body has no way to sweat and cool itself. So those are some of the dangers that we're talking about that are very real. This is not something abstract. This is real. This is today. And this is not something real that's happening elsewhere. It is happening here. And I'm reminded of an interview. If you remember, about 2 years ago, there were massive floods in Germany that wiped out a very idyllic sort of village. It was at the confluence. It was in a valley, beautiful valley, hills on either side, typical what you think of with greenery. And there was rain and flash floods. Flash floods wiped out the village, a lot of the village. At the end of that, after it was all over and people were sort of trying to recover, the mayor was interviewed. And he said, it was very interesting because he said, climate change was something that happened there. It didn't happen here. It didn't happen in my backyard. And that's what we are all facing today. Heat happened elsewhere, not here. We always had some respite. We always had the evenings when it would cool off. Doesn't happen. Extreme weather is here to stay. So what I'd like you to do is, when you go back today, please watch Heat and the Human Body. It describes what happens to the human body as you go through higher and higher temperatures. Similar things can be said for lower and lower temperatures. It's extremes. Humans are a fragile species. We are not used to extreme stuff, right? Okay, so how do we compare and construct temperature anomalies? We have here different compilations from various centers that have created a temperature anomaly. And what they've done is they've taken average temperatures from as many different places as they can get. And they've created a global average temperature. And then they've declared one time zone to be the norm. And they've taken year upon year difference between that average and that yearly temperature. So in this one here, where do you think the norm is? It's not going to be easy. I'm going to be asking questions. So if you thought you were going to come here and doze away, it's not going to happen. Okay, where do you think the norm is? It's trivial, actually. I'll give you a hint. It's mentioned on the slides. I didn't notice it. I should have covered it. So the common baseline is 1951 to 1980. And you can notice it because it fluctuates around zero, right? So here, this is where there is really no anomaly. So that's what the norm was. Everything before that is going lower even. So it tells me that we could have put the norm here and this would have been more dramatic, right? But let's say we take this 30, and that's normal that we take a 30-year period to be the normal temperature. And it has come, for better or for worse, we take it from 1951 to 1980. There are some who created from 1900 to 1930 because that's sort of the pre-industrialization. But you can see the changes. These are marked by major events, world wars, and then you can track these, and we'll look at some data where we have the GAST. This is your GAST now, right? This is not the GAST, this is the anomaly to the GAST. So we've created the GAST, and then we've said, okay, now we'll take the baseline in the GAST, and we've taken that to be from 1951 to 1980. The reference would change. Your zero would come down here, right? But it would not change substantially. It would change a little bit. but the trend would still remain, right? So that's what we're really looking at. Wherever you put the norm, if you put it out here, there are some people that say, well, that really doesn't work, so we have to put it up here. You can do that, but then everything before it is very much below, right? So you can do that, and we have data. Most probably, I think we have emails of everyone. We have all of your emails when you registered, right? Okay, so we'll send you data, and you can make your own GUST. Okay, I hope I have some links to where you can download your own data for the city that you want to look at, or the country you want to look at, or the state you want to look at. So there are multiple ways of getting the data. But if you look over here, somewhere around 1980 is when we start lifting off. So when we are talking about 1.5, 2 degrees change, we are really talking about this change from that baseline to what we have today. So we are right now at, if we take this as the baseline, 1951 to 1980, we are at about 1.3 degrees above that baseline. On an average, year after year, we have increased the temperature from 1951 to 1980 levels by about 1.3 degrees Celsius today. The base was here, right? So we put the base here. Yes, yes. So this is where a lot of industrialization happened. This is where everything started changing, and we started. Yes. The generations are making the problem. Yes, of course. Well, it's all of us. It's all of us. Our lifestyles have changed dramatically. From I was born in 1957, right? So I have seen these changes come. I've seen the huge technology leaps that we've seen. It's sometimes I date myself because I tell when I'm teaching, I say, well, you can call. Most people look at me, what do you mean call? Calling is like this. It's not dialing, right? You don't have any rotary thing. I think most of you don't know that there is a rotary thing that used to be there that we would dial with. You have your cell phones, or you have these touch things, right? So this is, and not only that, we have a lot of change that has happened that has given us the standard of living that we have today, but that has come at a cost. Right? So that's really what we're looking at. You're very right, because things have changed and things have accelerated as we went on.